Hey everyone, welcome back to But Why the Podcast. We're back from our teeny little hiatus, and today we're talking about it's me, Mario. I'm Kate, and
Wow.
I'm here
Yeah,
with my
yeah,
co-host Adrian.
we're not starting over. You're keeping that.
That
Sorry.
that's fine.
Yeah, you're
I'm
keeping
here
that.
with Adrian
Hey, how's it going?
and Matt,
Hello.
and Jason is here too. Sorry, um,
I am
Jason.
here.
Who is our audio producer, which gets cut out, who I usually say, Jason, whenever we need to cut something out of the episode. He makes sure that we sound somewhat coherent on our episodes, and he's also senior editor at our site. Jason, why are you here to talk about Mario with us today?
Big fan, big fan. Been playing Mario all my life. Also, we couldn't do a Luigi episode unless we did Mario first.
That is the real reason why he's here.
But despite my really bad, I think, Mario impression, I will not be leading this episode. Matt will.
Yes, because obviously I'm the oldest person here, and Mario's older than all of you, including myself
And
by a
you.
lot. Yeah, I was like by a lot. So, but yes, welcome aboard, Jason. Jason is here because he was dying for a Luigi episode, and I said we have to talk about Mario because Mario is the actual important one, and Jason agreed to come talk about Mario so long as we talk about Luigi, which will be in next week's episode about Luigi. So yes.
It's a fair deal.
Yes, it is. So to get this started off, obviously there's a lot of stuff to talk about Mario, and this is going to be kind of a weird episode in the sense of like we're going to talk about Mario, the character himself, but he kind of gone from character to franchise to like beyond to basically Nintendo, and so kind of we're going to be bob and weaving between like Mario, the little plumber guy, and then actually Mario, the video game, and then even Mario,
The god.
as in, yeah, the god at this point. So
Wait,
kind
does
of,
that mean that. Wait, so you said Mario the little plumber guy. Are we going to talk about a plumber named Mario?
yes, for at least a little bit to get started here.
Let's roll. Okay.
Yes. So our intro question for this: what is the first Mario game you played? And I guess we'll start with Adrian.
Yeah. So the first Mario game I played was the actual first Super Mario Brothers on the NES because my grandma had the golden NES.
Ooh,
So that was like that and the original Zelda, the first games I played on that thing. So OG for me.
I like it. Kate.
Same. So I've played a lot of Mario in that I've played a lot of one level of a lot of the Mario games. um, but I played the original Super Mario Brothers on the NES as well, because that was the Mortal Kombat machine essentially, and then it just so happened to also have a Mario.
And then Jason, what do you have?
I'm not 100% sure. It's either Super Mario 64, which was the first one that I owned myself in my own house, or it was Super Mario Brothers, the original NES game, because it was uh, at my grandparents' house. Also had an NES with the Mario and the Zelda, and played the heck out of Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario Bros. 3. But also, it could have been Super Mario Brothers Deluxe, which is the Game Boy Color port of Super Mario Brothers, because that was also one of the first games that I remember owning. Which, yeah, could have been any of those.
I would just like to say I don't know if it's because I really miss my mom, but I would like to point out that Jason said I played the Mario and the Zelda, and it reminded me of when my parents talked about video games.
So I was going to talk about that then, but yes, basically between Mario branching off and coming into Nintendo, we end up because it's one of the first ones. We do lead with the whole generation of parents who just reference all video games as the Nintendo, or the Mario.
My mom has at least started. My mom has graduated to the PlayStation, but it doesn't make sense because our house was always either a Nintendo console or an Xbox. But my cousin who's living with them right now has a PlayStation, and now everything is a PlayStation. and I don't get it. I don't
I don't.
understand.
As for me, I'm definitely with kind of like in the same boat as like Adrian, and then I guess even you, Kate, of somewhat of the original like 1985 Super Mario Brothers or Bros game on the NES. And that nice little thing. Did nobody play the motorcycle game? Because everybody mentioned Zelda, but all I remember from that is Mario Bros. And the little motorcycle game.
Excite Bike.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Not until I
I
was
played
older.
Duck Hunt.
That
Duck
I
Hunt was
played
Yeah.
cool.
plenty of.
Duck Hunt was cool.
Yeah, like they had Duck Hunt, Super Mario Bros, Zelda, and Cubert. I think were like the only games that like my grandma owned, and she was a beast at all of them.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
but that was it. Like she didn't move on to any other console. She just stuck right there and was like speed running Zelda and Super Mario Brothers.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing when you go back and see all the people who are doing these speed runs where they're like beating games in like 5 minutes, and you're like, oh wow. I remember as a
Yeah,
child.
that
this
was my grandma. And I was like, dude, I didn't even find the sword for like the first like 2 hours. Grandma, how are you doing this? She also called it the Zelda machine, is what she used to call it. That's all she used to
You know
play.
what? That's fair. So to kind of get in here, Mario was created back in 1981 by Shigeru Miyamoto.
Yes.
Mario had the first appearance actually in Donkey Kong in 1981. So not even his own game, but basically Donkey Kong. And it's actually he was originally called Jumpman. So basically back in 1981 when they were doing Donkey Kong, they made this character called Jumpman, and he was actually an antagonist of the Donkey Kong series and whatnot else.
Wait, so Mario was evil?
When he started out, yeah, because Donkey Kong was the main character.
Well, I feel like it
That's
was more like
cool.
Donkey Kong was the bad guy kidnapping the lady, and Jumpman's got to save the day.
I mean, whatever you want to look at it.
I guess it's
I don't know. I
depends
never,
on-
I never
I guess-
played Donkey Kong.
That's a very
I-
anthropocentric, way of looking at it of me. I guess maybe Donkey Kong was trying to save, what was her name, Paulette, something like that.
I don't
from
even.
Jumpman.
It was not
He
Princess
was,
Peach.
He was a
it
predator. Donkey Kong was the hero. Yeah, very anthropocentric of me. I'm
All I
sorry.
know is I've played Donkey Kong like a couple of times in arcade. I know the barrels fall and you avoid them, and then we had a dumb game with bongo drums that was Diddy Kong for some reason.
Right.
That's my extensive knowledge of Donkey Kong.
Yeah. But basically, kind of get into like the actual character, which is kind of like what I said we were going to talk about, like Mario, I guess himself, and then before they get franchised. But basically, Mario himself is basically a fictional character in the Mario video game franchise, but it's all owned and basically and done by Nintendo. Mario himself is depicted as a short, pudgy Italian plumber. He usually-
Look, Mario is a thick boy.
He usually wears a red hat with blue overalls and kind of, I said red undergarments, but technically just kind of a red shirt underneath.
I was like, why would you say undergarments?
Because who-
Like, do we?
'cause you know
do
why?
we know that his boxers are red?
No, all I know is, all I'm thinking of is people who wear overalls usually have like just thermals, and it's just a solid like one piece thermal, which are usually considered an undergarment,
What?
especially in the 80s.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
Kate, are you confused by this? Because everybody else knows what I'm talking
some,
about.
some red long johns.
This is how I know that I did not grow up anywhere remotely country.
They're called long johns, as Jason said, or kind
Yeah.
of the short name.
Again, I grew up in Central Texas where snow doesn't exist and in a city.
Yeah,
So-
I did not question undergarments. I thought that was
I was
show
like,
notes is just going to be a
boxers?
diagram of like Mario's clothing. Is just we're gonna have to find it for the show notes.
He actually originally started off with like a white, I guess, overalls, and then eventually changed to blue over time. He obviously even more depiction goes as we get more and more technology. Because remember, this
Don't
is the
these
early.
turn white when you like get like the power up thingy?
I mean, one of them does. But
This
the,
is-
but the
y'all,
original
I-
game.
This is gonna be fun.
If there was ever an episode that you could call me a fake gamer girl, I thought it would have been Zelda. No, it is this one right here.
Wow. So Mario actually resides. He lives in Mushroom Kingdom, which we kind of see throughout the years, and then he has a younger twin brother named Luigi, which will be in next week's episode, which is why Jason is here. If you want to give one sentence on why you love Luigi, Jason, to give everybody a nice tease.
My favorite color is green.
So the funny thing is, that's why in the early days I always played Luigi because my favorite color is green.
Can I say why I like Luigi?
Sure.
Because I had a crush on the John Leguizamo in the live-action Super Mario movie, and so I always played Luigi because of that.
God bless.
I always just thought Mario was kind of a dick and Luigi was nicer.
Which we will learn eventually in, I believe, the next week's episode. So everybody, stay tuned for that.
I've prepared a whole soliloquy, don't worry.
Awesome.
Good. I'm excited.
So kind of give a synopsis of this whole entire, basically, Mario existence to where we get to today. Basically, Mario was popular in the Donkey Kong games that came out, and basically got his own game series back in 1983, Super Mario Bros. That led to basically so many games and other series within a franchise, and these games consist of platforming, which we kind of know in the Super Mario series, I guess, with Super Mario Bros. 64, and I guess even today's Galaxy. Obviously, we have sports, traditional, as in like Mario Golf, baseball, and Olympic type stuff, and then we always have puzzle games, racing, like Mario Kart, even some RPGs, some party games, and even a few educational games. So there's a lot of games. So kind of moving into those games, Mario has appeared in over 200 games since its creation. So therefore, I'm not going to name all of these games, but I am going to kind of go through some of the popular series, and we can kind of name some of our favorite games that we played, if you played them or did not play them. And it's weird because, Mario is like a franchise, but then he's broken down into series, which are kind of like sub-series or sub-franchises. It's all kind of weird. Doing these notes was a little hard. For one, this was back in like the 80s and even the 90s, and as we've done other video game episodes, we all know that video game data and stuff is kind of very convoluted. Nobody knows what happens. That just happened. So we'll kind of go with however we can go with. So we'll start with essentially the Super Mario series, which is basically Super Mario, like basically starting in 95, it said. And this is a Super Mario Bros. 1 through 3, Super Mario World for the the Super NES, I believe, what it was called. Is that right? I don't remember what that was even called. Super Nintendo. Mario 64, and then like Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. I'm assuming everybody has played. If you're a fan of Mario of any sort, you probably played at least one of these games, if not more.
Yeah, I think the only one I haven't played of that list is Super Mario Galaxy 2, because I think that's when I didn't have like the right console at the time to play that one. But yeah, I played all of this. And I'm sure we'll get into it, but like every game there like ups the ante in like platformers and stuff, and it's just all of those are really
and
good.
obviously these aren't even all of them. These are just probably the
Yeah,
most
of course.
popular ones.
Yeah.
These are like the ones
with
that
those
are...
sunshine in there as well.
Yeah.
The only video game I've ever completed that was Mario was Super Mario Sunshine on the GameCube that I played from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, that one's fantastic. That was one of my favorites on the GameCube for sure.
I loved it, but out of everything else, I've maybe played a handful of levels, being generous of all of these. I think I remember Super Mario Galaxy 1 the most. But yeah, I it's very weird for me, and I hate doing these Nintendo episodes because I realize how like my biggest blind spot in gaming at all is like the entire world of Nintendo. And for the life of me, I don't know why. Because my brother had like all the Kirby and Mario games that like they ported over to the GameCube, and like everybody around me had the NES, and like I saw them in arcades. But like I just, yeah, sadly I can just say I've played a little of each. Maybe.
I think part of it is that the games used to be a lot more easily accessible, like the old ones. And now the only you can get all the NES and Super NES games. They're all on the Switch if you have the like online service and you go play in the virtual whatever it's called. But any game from the like N64 to Wii, even the Wii U time period, you can't play it unless they made a remake of it. And that's part of it, I think. It's just hard to get a hand on a lot of these games if you didn't own them originally on the console they came out for.
Yeah, which is weird because, like I said, I've beat even multiple times, like Super Mario World 64, like even the Mario Bros. Except the second one. I didn't really care for the second one. But and it's weird because like all up to like pre 2000, which obviously when we kind of talked about in a few other episodes where we get like the Dreamcast, we start getting to Xbox and PlayStation kind of really elevates itself. I haven't really played some of these Mario games as we get in here, just because like I didn't have they came on one platform. There weren't across multiple platforms. They were only Nintendo, and I just, you get one. And I happen to have an Xbox, and so therefore I did not get a Wii, or I didn't have a GameCube. Also, the GameCube sucked. I'm sorry, it was terrible. But
Also, I had a Wii, but we had two games. We had Rock Band, and we had the free Wii Sports, and that is what we played.
At
Oh,
least
you
they're
mean
two
one of the
great
best
games.
selling video games of all time? Wii
At
Sports.
least they're two
Yes.
great games. I think I've played.
Oh, and I think I had like the Resident Evil port that they did with all of that was trash. That was awful. But yeah.
but moving on to the next thing. Obviously, these aren't necessarily in like chronological order. They're just kind of how they came in there. Would be the Mario Kart series, which is kind of racing. Started in 1992. We have the Super Mario Kart, which by the way, I still hold as the best one from the very very original one, and still like the hardest one. Then obviously Mario Kart 64, and then they kind of just go with Mario Kart, either random name or Mario Kart. Give it like a number because they went like 5 games, given random name, and then came back and said, we're just going to name this one 7 because we ran out of names. But that's basically, you have the nice little racing series that's gone on. Obviously, outside of moving on to the next one, which is actually surprising of how much this one's been successful, and I really liked when they started, was Mario Party series. And essentially, you just have Mario Party 1 through Mario Party 10, and then random Super Mario Party because they got tired of numbers. But no, I've actually enjoyed the Mario Party series. I still enjoy the first one. I wish I could find it because for the longest time I had it, and I've thought about going back to rebuy it, but it's also like $50.
So I don't know what Mario Party is.
So, oh gosh. Okay, so Mario Party is the very
You've never almost fought your siblings before.
yeah, clearly, you've never tried to fight anybody. So
I
Mario,
almost lost so many friendships
oh
with
yes,
Mario.
or
Mario
or if
Party.
you never had a blister, you clearly definitely were never a true gamer.
You can do all of those things with other games.
Not like you
but
could
this
in
is-
Mario
This is
Party.
an extreme.
It's like Monopoly, the video game, basically.
So Mario Party was one of the. I mean, I don't know if it's one of the first party games, but essentially it was 1 through 4 players in 1998, and basically you had a board. You kind of rolled your little dice. You moved along the board, collect coins and stuff, and then at the end of each session, each roll, you basically had a set of basically mini games that you played, and depending on how people rolled, you went from if everybody rolled like I think because the colors were essentially green was positive, blue neutral, and I think red was negative or something like that, as far as like getting coins and stuff. And so basically, if you rolled and 3 people landed on blue and 1 person landed on red, it would be a 3v1 game. If it was 2v2s or free for alls or something like that. And so you played a game, and then basically you get winners, and so you get additional points, and then you got stars, and whoever got the most stars. And also, the game is where we taught all children that life's not fair because you could dominate the entire game, and then when you got to the end, Koopa came in and said, hey, let's just give y'all some random stars for dumb random stuff. And then all of a sudden, the person that's in last place who hasn't done anything, but they felt like a charity case or something, gave them 20 stars and they won the game despite losing every freaking minigame.
Oh,
And
this
this is where
sounds
you-
awful.
This
It's
is where
great.
you learned it.
I forget if it's 3 or 4, but one of the N64 ones, there's like Boo will just come and jump you in the back alley and steal all your stars and give them to somebody else, just randomly on a tile all
Okay,
the
so
time.
I take
and
back
it's
what
great.
I said. This actually sounds extremely frustrating.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because you had people who are just great at the game and like a skill level, but then they added so much randomness to the game that it just drove people crazy, and then you want to fight your siblings.
Are you people?
I am definitely people.
Yeah, I'll always thank Mario Party for things like Pokemon Stadium's like party game aspect, which is great.
Oh, so
Raving
good.
Rabbids, things like that comes out later on. It's all that kind of style, but we all get it.
Okay.
I think it. I mean, if I couldn't think of any other party game before that, but I think Mario Party jumps that off for sure.
Yeah, I said
Okay.
there might have been one before it, but this is by far the most popular one. We don't get Fusion Frenzy and their weird knockoff stuff without this Mario Party. For those of
I
you that
forgot
played
about
the
those
original
Pokemon
Xbox.
Stadium ones. Those are so good.
Yeah.
But I say the blister stuff because of some of the critiques of the earlier games was you had to, with the old 64 controllers and their weird thing, you had to spin it. And so the best way to win the game was you basically put your palm directly on the joystick and you just spun it like that and you just ripped all of the skin and formed blisters on your...
And then they moved to the Wii and then you had to like shake the joysticks. And some people were just better at that than others.
It was an intense time, okay? Mario Party is intense. I love Mario Party.
Oh my god. I bring absolutely nothing to this episode, but this is very interesting.
So moving from Mario Party to
some
of the sports games, basically started in 1995, we get like Mario Tennis, Mario Golf, Mario Baseball, back when they actually made baseball games. Mario Strikers, which is essentially just soccer. Then they started the Mario and Sonic at the Olympic thing, which I think been going on since 2007. And then a bunch of just random Mario sports games and Mario like mix and match whatever type games. Mario Golf I think would be probably one of the most popular ones out of this. Mario Tennis was good, but then I think tennis games sadly died in the late 90s, early 2000s.
The Mario Tennis for Switch though is actually really good.
Nice. He said I haven't played it. That because like I said I do have a Switch, but I haven't played stuff lately. Then we
I
can
played the Olympics ones the most, but I remember all of these.
Yeah, Mario Golf would probably be. I played some of the earlier Mario Tennis and obviously Mario Golf and some of the Mario Baseball ones, but I've played the Olympics ones. It is what it is. Mainly at just bars that have video game stuff. It's basically a popular game there. Then we have like these Mario puzzle games, which start in 1990. This is where we get the Dr. Mario games. If any of y'all remember Dr. Mario,
I remember Dr. Mario,
which, if I remember correctly, is just like knockoffs of basically Tetris with Mario in it.
It's a Tetris-like game. Yeah.
Yes, Tetris-like games. All of those games are just called Tetris. And then we also have the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series, which essentially they brought back, I think, in the early 2000s of bringing back where instead of being foes anymore, they're now like friends and they do some weird stuff. I don't know. I didn't play these, to be honest. They're just random games that are thrown on random DS, Ds, whatever, Wii U, whatever stuff. Nintendo had a weird generation of consoles.
Can we talk about how many different consoles Nintendo has actually had in production at any given time? Like, the only reason they don't have multiple ones now is because the Switch is the two things they do all the time. Well, I guess they technically have two because they have the Lite and the regular Switch. Mario has probably been on more consoles than anything else. Any other character.
I mean, he's been in more games. That's not hard.
Whatever.
So from there, we technically have these Mario RPG games that I actually knew existed, but I actually really didn't know they were actual RPG games. From 1996, basically a Super Mario RPG, which there's a few of those, and then obviously we have the Paper Mario series, which I believe, Jason, you are a big fan of, if I'm remembering correctly.
I've played a good number of them. All of the different Mario RPG games are actually like good, both games and good RPGs. They're not. I've played a good mix of them.
And then we have the Mario and Luigi series plus their remakes that are, once again, just kind of when you get to play Mario and Luigi as well. Luigi has some fame in these games, I guess. And then we get to basically these Mario educational series stuff, which did not know happened, but apparently is that, and that we have it started in 1986, but basically we have Mario is Missing, Mario Time Machine, Mario's Early Years, and then my favorite one is Mario Teaches Typing 1 and 2. Because essentially back in the days, if people didn't know, if you were good enough to get past the Oregon Trail or something of teaching you, you could get Mario teaching and they would teach you to type.
Yeah, like whenever we do these old game episodes, there's always like, all of them have some kind of like educational terrible game that's supposed to teach you how to do stuff.
Oh yeah, these are all infamously
with just
terrible.
like a skin of Mario on it.
I mean, that's what a lot of these are, to be honest. Mario's just kind of been licensed out because he was such a popular character, and outside of him actually doing anything remotely close to what Mario does, it's not there.
Oh yeah, I've seen some Let's Plays of these, and they're just they're not even good like educational games. They're just a mess. I'll stick with type to learn
anything.
Yeah, but that's the funny thing is also because apparently during the time frame too is which we've seen also of from like 91 to like 95 or something, educational games just take off, and so that's where we get a lot of these like weird we're just going to put Mario in an education game. I think like even Carmen Sandiego, I think took off somewhere in the time that we did earlier. I don't even know if that was this year or last year, to be honest, but we do have an episode on that.
Yeah.
Casper had some educational games from a few episodes ago.
It's probably like that time when people just started getting computers and schools started getting computers and the video game industry was under attack by Congress and they were like, well, look, we can be good for the kids by teaching them things. See, we're
Not everything is
Mario-
Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Mario can do more than just kill turtles and
Oh, he
Goombas
totally
all day.
stomps on turtles in these games too. But
does he? No.
but all for education's sake, you know.
Yes, that's really it.
Anything to learn geography.
Obviously, this doesn't include some of the spin-off series at top, which we'll kind of talk about later in the But Why Those. I guess looking at the thing, before we kind of talk about some of our favorites and I guess a little bit more about some of the games and things, I looked at a bunch of variety of lists just to kind of see of like, you know how Mario games fall in general, because what we noticed with some of these other games, specifically like Sonic, where some of the franchises are revered and then they kind of just fall off the face of the earth for multiple reasons, and even we saw with cartoons and other media. But Mario, there never really seems to be any drop-off. Like, between the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, these games, they may not all be the greatest game in the world, but they're not, like, super... And maybe some of them are kind of lackluster, but there's nothing that's really bad, and they always have, like, a top game from, like, a different era. And I think that's what makes Mario, like, very unique, and probably why it's one of the best franchises, not arguably the greatest franchise of video games, is... It doesn't just have like a 3 or maybe 5 year period and then go dormant or people don't care about it or have to wait 10 years. It's constantly throughout like the almost 4 decades it existed. Some frequent games in some of these lists I looked at, like top games, were basically Super Mario World from the Super NES, which is a great game. I'd probably argue maybe my favorite when I think about it now. One I'd probably say I beat the most. Obviously Mario 64, which would probably be arguably the one that would be against it. So basically we now have like 2 different consoles with 2 different games. Super Mario Bros. 1 through 3, various with the new Super Mario Bros. Excuse me, which I believe is the Wii, if I'm correct, or game. I don't remember which one that one is. And then obviously even Super Mario Galaxy and Odyssey, which are kind of some of the more recent ones of hit thing. Obviously, Sunshine was mentioned, 3D World and other ones, but those 5 or 6 were ones that were basically always within the top 3 to 4 in every list. So I don't know what some of y'all's favorite was over the time.
Super Mario Sunshine.
Oh my
The
God.
only one I beat. No, so that's my favorite, obviously. But I would say the ones that I've actually been debating buying, Paper Mario looks amazing. And I think Paper Mario and then Super Mario Odyssey are the ones that I've actually contemplated seeing if I can get on my Switch. But I haven't. They're expensive. Mario games are expensive and they don't go on sale. And I understand why Nintendo makes money and has never cared what Xbox or Sony are doing. Because Mario.
Just a money printer. Never dropped Never dropped a bad game before.
I really enjoy Galaxy, but I think it's because of what Sunshine does. Like Sunshine puts that weird kind of platformy, you can do whatever you want kind of thing. And that kind of jumps off with Galaxy and Odyssey. So I probably have to say Sunshine, because that's the game I had the most fun with that I can think of. And I only had fun for that game because of Super Mario's, or for the other games because of Super Mario Sunshine. Because Odyssey's fun. I enjoy playing Odyssey, but Super Mario Sunshine, that jetpack, come on, man.
Which obviously I didn't really talk about too much, but these games do change over the course of time. You mentioned jetpack. I didn't really bring up because there's so much to talk about Mario in general and just kind of the franchise itself. But didn't really bring up they did have power ups and level ups, and they kind of changed between, as Kate said, you kind of change where you into a suit where you could get you could fly in some games. You got a cape, jetpacks, stars, and firepower, and other types of just power ups, and they've definitely changed and kind of modified as the years gone on, and it's been a lot of fun to see. And then, like I said, even Mario 64, you could just fight people, which was weird, but it existed. But anyway, so moving from the games into kind of other media, which is kind of why it's been weird. And it's weird because, which I'll kind of get into, because we still haven't got to why I'm just trying to do background stuff, but just there's a lot of extra media, but one, it's not really American based, and it's not quite for as successful as this franchise is, as much as we've seen in other types of franchises. So technically, there are 6 TV series. They all lasted maybe 2 years, and they all take place between 1989 to 1992, except one took place in 1983. That's it. There's also this weird thing called Mario Ice Capades, which is a TV special, basically Mario on Ice, that took place on ABC in 1989. That played Christopher Hewitt, that plays Bowser, and Jason Bateman and Alyssa Milano also appear in this.
I love this, and I want to watch it now.
I've never heard
Adrian,
of this.
is there a YouTube for it?
I'm sure there is. This is ridiculous. What am I looking at? And we've looked at some ridiculous things when we look at like when they go this route, but this is just on some other stuff. Like, what is this?
So from 89 to 92 is literally like we think of peak Mario, I guess, like, you know, even nowadays in 2000s, and, you know, like we hadn't even hit the Mario 64. But yeah, when it came to like trying to franchise this out into other stuff, it's these years, and man, some of this stuff is kind of bad. But yeah, Jason Bateman and Alyssa Milano, part of your career filmography apparently is an ABC 1989 special.
Oh,
do yourselves a favor, guys. Go Google that. Go Google that. That's fantastic.
I don't know what this atrocity is, but he's a mood.
Yeah, you need something to lift your spirits. Go watch that train wreck.
So I will say this is like good train wreck that like is giving me belly laughs, and not the nightmare fuel that was that Ninja Turtles musical that Adrian found.
Yeah. There's levels, and this is definitely this is inching towards Shrek musical level for me, because this is just.
But so kind of moving on from TV to film, technically the first film is Super Mario Bros. The Great Mission to Rescue Princess Peach. And it's actually made in 1986 in Japan, and it's an anime film. And it's actually the first movie based on a video game. We just didn't know because it was made in Japan only, and so probably nobody knows this movie even exists. But that also leads to the 1993 live-action movie Super Mario Bros., which this movie is terrible, awful, and a disgrace. And I still hate that they have not done anything since that. And the sad part is, looking this up, apparently it's been so bad that now people 30 years later are like, look, it can't be that bad, and become some type of a cult classic. But we just remember terrible movies.
I'm putting it on the watch list for this week because I want to rewatch it really bad.
This movie is terrible. I remember as a kid watching it going, this wasn't awful, but this is weird that this is Mario, and like maybe this is limitations.
I liked it as a kid.
Yeah, but then as I watched it as an adult or teenager, I was like, oh my gosh, this thing is awful.
I liked it as a kid. I don't think I've actually watched it as a full grown adult. I feel like the last time I watched it was when I was a teen, and I was still like, oh yeah, John Leguizamo's still hot. I just remember the Koopas had really tiny heads, and it looked weird and scary.
I've never seen it.
Good for you, Jason. I'm proud of you. This leads to basically, obviously, which we'll probably talk about, and a lot of these things come in the future in general. This was pre-COVID, but apparently there is an upcoming animated film that was scheduled for 2022, but we have no idea how much that's going to happen or when, if it's still that date. But there is something apparently coming up, which they're doing with Mario as well. Anime and comics. There's one anime and then 3 educational anime videos, which I just wanted to bring up just for fun of it.
Are they like PSAs? Is it like Mario going, this is your brain on drugs?
Yes, it is, pretty much. First of all, we have the 2 anime per se, which is kind of put 2 in parentheses. Super Mario Kun?
Oh, you mean 2 manga?
2 manga, whatever. My bad. 2, put in quotes, manga. We have Super Mario Kun.
Super Mario Kun.
Yeah. We started in 1991. Basically, got 53 volumes worth of stuff, and then essentially it leads into Super Mario Bros. Manga Mania, which is supposed to be releasing later this year.
December 8th.
Which is the English version of all of this stuff, finally, after like 20 plus years. They're finally going to do it, and this is going to become by Viz Media, which we'll find out later, like how popular this apparently is. But then we get like the Nintendo Comic System, which was basically by Valiant Comics from 1990 and 91. Does Valiant Comics still exist?
Yes.
That's my favorite game on this podcast. Does this comic company still exist? Um,
The
Adrian got the
answer's been no a lot of the time.
Adrian got the musicals. I got comic companies. Some. And basically these were a bunch of random comics featuring Nintendo characters. Basically, like I said, between 89 to 92, basically everybody just wanted to make something with either Mario or Nintendo, which is technically Mario at this time character. And then we have music. Obviously, the theme is very popular. There's been plenty of concerts, and orchestras have done so many different Mario, types of concerts over the years, and other. Just basically, we know what the Mario theme characters are. If it's in a concert, they've probably done it. And from what I found, as far as musical, as I brought it up, I believe there's a musical or one or two of them. I haven't sure if they're actually Nintendo official because one, we know how Nintendo does things. But apparently, what I did find with the Celebrate, I think it was Galaxy 1, they did some weird CGI Mario musical thing. I don't really know. But if you Google Mario musical, you'll find some like half-looking unofficial ones which look awful. And I'm not even sure if they're truly that. And then you'll find this weird CGI Mario-looking musical thing. I don't really know because we learned official and unofficial, at least for this, is very odd. But apparently there is plenty of musical stuff that exists.
Yeah, I don't know why that exists. That's another one of those things where I'm not sure why this exists, because there is a Super Mario Odyssey Jump Superstar musical that they did, I guess.
Yeah.
So that exists.
That's
it's literally just like people dancing and like Mario just jumping around in different costumes.
That's weird.
Is that the thing that's the promo for Super Mario Odyssey?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, because that's actually like a real, not particularly weird thing. I've seen it. The song is super catchy. It's in my head all the time.
Okay, well, it exists.
I mean,
Superstar. It's like super catchy. Great.
I love it.
Okay.
Also, I just want to note here that Valiant Comics is like the people who do Bloodshot, so there's potential for a Mario Vin Diesel live action crossover, maybe. Hey, look, if we could do a musical version, put animated Mario in Bloodshot. Let's do it.
Okay, so at this point we have a G.I. Joe cross Transformers cross Fast and the Furious that we've put into the universe, and now we have a Mario / Vin Diesel Bloodshot.
Just picturing Vin Diesel acting with the virtual Mario.
I think that
that would be wholesome as hell.
Oh, I want it.
This is the plot of the Illumination Studios Mario movie. What's going to get me in the theater?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of like just all background and media stuff I haven't even got into, but I guess we're going to finally get into the but why those, even though kind of this whole episode been kind of this weird.
Wait, we're just now getting into the but why those?
Well, that's what I'm saying, because like there's so much stuff here that I was like, this is trying to compact 37 plus years of your life, Kate.
But that's fine. We have the Muppets episode in a couple of weeks. It's going to be the same.
We've been in the but why though mode for the last 40 minutes anyway, practically.
Yes. Yeah, pretty much. Which kind of lead to essentially getting to these but why those. And I just like doing this because I have a brand at this point to keep up. It's a successful franchise.
And by brand, he means boring structure that he repeats every episode he leaves.
Correct. You know what? Some people like structure. That's how it works. It is a franchise that's been around for, 37 plus years. Obviously this year they're celebrating the 35th anniversary of Super Mario Bros. Because it came out in 1985, and obviously I think this is like dedicated from Nintendo the Year of Mario or whatever. Obviously they had a lot of plans to go through before obviously a pandemic hit. But yes, this is technically Nintendo's Year of Mario, so clearly 35.
Yeah, when's that guy gonna get his due? Gosh.
Yeah, they clearly are doing something very well. They have new games coming out, new stuff. Obviously they've sold over 650 million units or copies of games. It's obviously going to grow. But as I said, it sold over 650 million units or copies. Obviously, as we've talked about in all these other video game episodes of take what you want from these numbers, they're very hard, especially if once we go past like 2010 or even 2000 everything. Obviously, they're going to continue to grow. Mario, the franchise overall, that's including like all their little sub series like Mario Karts and stuff, is obviously the highest selling franchise of all time. Like I said, with 6 feet. The funny thing is they have these like their series that we talked about or their sub series are actually like also high. Like so, the Super Mario series, which is like the platforming stuff, is actually fourth all time with like around about 350 million, like copies sold. The Mario Kart series is actually 14th all time with like 150 million, 150 plus million copies sold. So like obviously when you add them all together, Mario's very top. But it's funny when you break down just even subsections of like this Mario of like how popular and how much the stuff sold. Obviously, these games are critically acclaimed, as we kind of mentioned. They've won multiple awards over the years and almost their 4-decade run. Multiple Game of the Year awards. This includes like in games in various series. I know for a while it was funny because I think they had like a nice little run where it was like I think like Mario like like an actual Super Mario game one, and then like a Mario Kart game one the next year, and then maybe like a Mario, like a Paper Mario one. It was like crazy, like just how many different games have won so many various awards over the years. And the funny thing is, even if they're not necessarily winning, they're all pretty highly rated. Because I think the lowest score I could actually find on Metacritic, because obviously it's kind of hard as we talked with even Rotten Tomatoes of like before like 2000 or something, game ratings, they didn't really have these aggregators, everything rating system with Mario Party 1999. That was a 79 rating. And it only had a very limited amount of reviews. It obviously was a game that, as we said, might be in the birth of a new genre type of game. And also, it's actually had an 81 rating, but for some reason, Game Revolution, who no longer exists, which I can see why, gave it a 33. I'm very disappointed, and that bugged me in that review.
What?
That's what I said. Like, there was a few games that gave it like in the 90 to even 100, and then somebody gave it a 33. It was like, I think the lowest was like maybe a 60, something like that, and there was a few like meh, but then there was a 33. It's the only bad review it's ever received, apparently, according to that.
Crime against humanity.
Yeah. But anyways, that's the point of like
That
even
one negative Rotten Tomatoes review that crashes a classic movie that had 100.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what it was. But it's not even like, because I think there was like maybe like said about 2 of them that were kind of like in the borderline mixed reviews. But the fact that like, all positive, like maybe 2 mixed and then random 33, which drops the score by like 30, like 3 points or something like that. But anyways, like I said, that was like the lowest that I could possibly find. Obviously, not all these games are available because they didn't have like the 1995s and stuff. And obviously, looking back in context, but there's so many games even now, like 94, 91, 93. Like their ratings are constantly to mid 80s to like low 90s. And I think one of them tops like 97. I believe I think it's either Odyssey or Galaxy that ends up being like one of the highest rating ones.
So not to undercut Mario's success of the games, but I do want to know like how much of Mario's success is literally just because it's another Mario game. Like, does it have that same standard of like, oh, it's gonna get X number automatically because it's just a good Mario game versus like a good game? Or like, because I know a lot of like the reason that like people keep coming back to the character is nostalgia, but like I know we've talked about sports games and rating them in the past. I wonder how much that comes into play.
Super Mario Galaxy won IGN's Game of the Year.
Yep.
Super Mario Maker won Giant Bomb. I don't know what Giant Bomb
That's
is.
fair.
But
That's fair.
it has a few wins for
Okay.
sure. And I'm
That
sure
is
it's
fair.
nominated almost every year, like
Yeah.
a game comes out. But it's also hard to be like, hey, Super Mario Maker is gonna be better than like The Last of Us 2.
Okay, so that's what I was gonna say. I was like, I can at least understand that like you have to judge it against like games more so than anything have to be judged against like similar types of games because they're just vastly different.
Well, it's like if you look at every one of Nintendo's major franchises, Mario is the only one that has consistently every single game is well regarded, basically. Like
That's fair.
Yeah,
not every Zelda game is well regarded by everyone. Not every Donkey Kong game, not every Kirby game, not every Metroid game, but Mario, every single game and every single one of their sub franchises is pretty much universally well regarded, unless you.
Yeah, which is what I found like looking through the thing, because I get what you're saying, Kate, and I do think some of the sales numbers probably mean just from Mario game buying it, but even looking, like I said, even reviews of stuff, and obviously I know some of these words are like whatever, but it seems to be people there comes a certain point to where it just seems like they still are trying different and new, quote unquote, innovative things with some of these games over the years. And so they've had added on or like twisted stuff. And it just, and regardless of everything, I feel like out of the 200 plus games or even just the regular games, eventually they would reach a stale point for everybody. But the
Yeah.
fact that I don't think that we've seen that like fatigue per se, I think is kind of like how well they've done, like what Jason
Yeah.
said.
Yeah. That's also
'Cause,
fair
like,
too, because
'cause-
I
'cause
guess like because the game types in Mario are complete. Like Mario has so many different game types too, right? Like,
right.
Yeah.
okay,
I mean,
Yeah, I
like I
think
said,
if you're looking at Super Mario too, I think the way that they've been doing it, I mean, because in like when they first came out, right, you have like Super Mario Brothers, and then 2, then 3, like all like within the same decade. You don't get like you don't get new like main franchise Super Mario Brother or Super Mario games, one after another.
right.
So like Super Mario Sunshine comes out in 2002. We don't get a new actual Super Mario to Galaxy 5 years later. Super Mario Galaxy 2 comes out in 2010, so 3 years later after that. And then we don't, from Galaxy all the way until Odyssey, like we don't have any major Super Mario games outside of like the remakes of like Super Mario Brothers 2
Yeah.
and then like Super Mario 3D World. So I think to avoid some of that fatigue, we don't get a new one like we get a new Zelda like every couple of years.
And then,
They
like I
put
said,
some
that's
distance.
fair.
yeah, and then they supplement that distance of Mario by doing like a Mario Kart, a Mario
Yeah, Super
Party.
Mario Maker or
Yeah,
Super
Mario
Mario
Maker, Paper
whatever.
Mario. Like I said, they've been able to supplement and kind of mix and match Mario to where you're getting Mario every year, but you're not getting the same Mario every year.
So would
Yeah,
you say
smart
that
marketing.
that's
Yeah.
that's what I was going to ask. Like, so is that essentially the model that people should be going to versus?
I mean, it depends on how much you like your character. I mean, because like,
Okay,
I mean,
okay. Adrian made such
No,
a
no,
bad
no.
face
Because
but,
I'm
like,
thinking like Zelda Maker. Like
No, I mean, I don't
game
think-
Zelda Maker.
Well, like, okay, no, so like not Zelda, but we have Hyrule Warriors right now, which is just
Okay.
a Zelda game, but it's a different kind of Zelda game. So, like, I guess what I'm asking, which is hard, right? Because like we've all talked about like remake fatigue and like, hey, maybe just let this franchise stop and go do a new thing type thing. But like, do you think that there are franchises that you think could benefit from moving to a Mario model where you are getting different types of games in different ways versus
I
just
was-
like,
I'm
here's your 18th Assassin's Creed?
Yeah, I was just thinking too. I mean, companies are already doing that, right? Like Riot has, an RPG coming out. Riot
Oh,
has
that's fair. Because they
FPS
have like
coming out.
what they have Runeterra, and then they
Yeah.
have like that King's thing.
Everyone seems to be going like that route of like auto chess, FPS, RPG.
but it also depends on like what world you get, because obviously
Yeah.
the main thing we'll see, which obviously why we're getting a Luigi episode next week, of like they, as technology go, they kind of build out this world to where now, especially with some of these card games, like Luigi has its own stuff, Koopa, Bowser, Peach, even Daisy now,
Toad's
and
got his own game.
yeah, like they've kind of built out this whole like Mario, I guess, universe per se to allow some of this stuff. But I don't know, like it's also for me looking at these like a lot of their spin-off games that allow some of the stuff, they're all multiplayer, like not really necessarily party game, but in the way they are, like Mario Kart still or even Mario Kart's kind of a party game. It's just racing. I mean, I don't know how many people play Mario Kart by themselves. I'm sure they do some, but I don't know anybody who dedicates like, I'm playing Mario Kart today for 12
So what I'm
hours by
hearing is
myself.
just that Mario is just special and has a special place and has special things.
I mean, yes,
Which
but I think I'm thinking about it like Assassin's Creed. There are some spin-offs. There's the Chronicles games, and those games are actually really good games for what they are. They take place in the same universe, so if you're someone who like really likes the Assassin's Creed world like I do, that's an extra incentive. If you're someone who just likes that kind of game, that's a different way to get into that same franchise. But it's like, to me, it's about, it has to actually be worth existing.
right.
Like if you the what's it called, the Animal Crossing party game that they made a couple years ago, was it worth existing? And even if you can love Animal Crossing all you want, the game just sucks, and it's not like, or Kingdom Hearts. I've been playing a lot of Kingdom Hearts lately. They just came out with a rhythm game, like, and it's the kind of thing where that game looks like it's good and people are enjoying it and people like that world and people like rhythm games. So you can absolutely take that Mario model of like make spin-offs of anything under the sun. It just has to actually be worth it.
And it has to be a
It's-
little different because, like, when I think of like the Assassin's
Yeah.
Creed thing, they're in different parts of the universe, but at the end of the day, it's still the same. It's almost reskinning of stuff, like Assassin, different part of the world story. Assassin, different part of the world story. Even though now they're not even assassins, just warrior, different part of the world.
Yeah, but there's also those 3 Assassin's Creed Chronicle games that are a completely different type of gameplay, but still have some of those Assassin's elements. You're still doing your hidden blade assassin techniques and stuff, but it's a side-scrolling 2D stealth game, and it's a totally different type of thing. And they're good games and worth existing. And it's, to me, a franchise is more than entitled to try out a Mario kind of model where you're, instead of throwing out a reskin like we're saying for Assassin's Creed every year or every 2 years, you have a big one every 5 years and some other different kinds of games in that franchise in between. But if you want to really talk about Ubisoft doing the Mario model, let's talk about Rayman and the Rabbids.
Yes,
Yeah,
so I was like, that's probably a better
That's
example,
a-
to be honest. But
That's actually a good example of a franchise that existed. They only made
And then
games
they
every
didn't
so
care about
often,
it.
but to pepper things in between that were like still in the same vein but a different kind of game. There's made a couple Rabbids games, and like, I think that, yeah, every studio is entitled to give it a try. Just make it worth it.
right, the Rabbits is probably a great example until Ubisoft let it die. But yes, like that is, even though Mario tried to bring it back for us, But anyways, okay. So moving next part, as we said, Mario's so big and everything else and successful, but it's also led and has so many own sub series and everything else. They've also caused so many like spin-off series or franchises, or they're kind of just sub. I don't know what the hell they call these things at the time, but essentially, I want to start with the first. The funny thing of this whole thing is technically we look at Donkey Kong, and the birth of Mario's existence was basically through Donkey Kong, because it wasn't until about the 4th game, Mario, that basically Donkey Kong appeared without Mario. So technically the Mario franchise is anything technically a spin-off or comes out of the Donkey Kong franchise. Which also, we should probably do our own episode of Donkey Kong and how weird that thing is when it comes to different game types of playing.
And I can talk about the bongo game.
I love that game.
But yeah, so that's where we start with. It's kind of like when we talk about all these sub-series and franchise of sub-franchise or whatever, that Mario itself basically is a character that comes out of another series and makes its own. Which then obviously lead to the Yoshi series between Yoshi's Island, Yoshi's Story, and Yoshi's Cookie. I actually like Yoshi's Cookie. And Yoshi's Island's not too bad. Then we have the Luigi series, which we'll go into more depth.
I love Yoshi's Island.
Love that game.
I love Yoshi's Island, and that's all I will say, because I've probably played more of that than Mario games.
Yoshi's Island's pretty good. I enjoy Yoshi's Island.
It's so fun. Yoshi is also just a perfect baby, and that's all that matters
Right.
too.
And then obviously we'll go into depth more next week with the Luigi series, with the Luigi's Mansions 1 through 3, Dr. Luigi, and then the new Super Luigi U, and what that ends up being.
Is that like a Super Luigi University?
No.
Is that why it has U?
That's called when
I wish.
That's when Nintendo made all of their consoles with like the Wii, the Wii U, the 3D,
Oh,
XU,
gotcha.
and it added blender. Yeah, added random.
different letters.
Yeah, different letters, whether it's an X or a U at this point. Or D, I guess. Then we obviously have the Wario series, which is Wario Land, like 1 through 4, plus like random other ones. And then they have technically WarioWare, which is technically Wario's own quote unquote franchise, which is also weird.
played WarioWare.
They're just ridiculous party games. A lot of them are fun.
No game for Waluigi.
Oh,
Which we haven't even talked about, even the characters of Waluigi, of what happens there and stuff.
we haven't talked about Peach or Daisy.
Well, because there was so much to talk about in Mario that trying to be
This is a Mario
yeah,
episode.
so trying to talk about some of these other characters, as we're already over an hour and I haven't been able to get through anything, is thing. But no, there are plenty of other characters that are lovable that play a big role.
So we need a Mario Part 2 that is just the side characters and their worlds.
Yeah, you probably could have done Mario Universe. I don't know. But kind of leads to the next and kind of final but why, though, is basically Mario and Beyond, which is kind of what Kate has hinted at this entire time because she doesn't know how to scroll. Essentially, Mario is outside the character and even the video game franchise has become much more than that. Like Mario has its own official day in Japan called Mario Day, or National Mario Day, and it's celebrated every March 10th for the abbreviation of Mario. as in MAR 10.
Oh, that's so cute.
That is adorable, and I love it, and it's wholesome, and I expect nothing less from a country that has city mascots that are gigantic and can't fit through doors.
But yes, apparently in Japan there's a National Mario Day.
That makes me so
Why
happy.
just Japan?
I
It's
know.
International
Why can't
Mario
we
Day
have
I don't
now.
know.
I
That's just what it
know.
said. They're just we don't celebrate gaming culture the way they do.
I just want to meet the person who is like, March 10th spells Mario in lead speak. Let's go.
It's so good.
We mentioned a successful franchise, but Mario goes beyond gaming. And it's kind of funny when we bring up these like highest grossing like gaming franchise and stuff. As Mario as a media franchise itself, this includes like their TV, everything else, is actually the 9th highest grossing franchise of all time. And we'll just put that as an asterisk because this is ever changing. For all I know, stuff changes and people release. So, which kind of the weird, interesting thing was Pokemon and quote unquote Disney Princess, which is apparently a media franchise, which is
Disney
whatever.
princesses
I
don't
know
count, because that's so many.
I
different
know. Trust me,
franchises
Disney
within-
has to do everything they can to try to get a weird wave in there. Are basically the only quote unquote franchises that were established after Mario that are ahead of it. Whatnot else? I put in quotation mark in our show notes of Disney princesses because that's how I thought when I saw this. I was like, come on, really?
You're trying to tell me that franchise is newer than Mario too? Like, what is that even supposed to mean?
Don't know. They
Like, get over
basically,
yourself.
whatever they did.
Because technically the first Disney princess is in 1930.
But they didn't make it a
Yeah.
brand
Snow
and a more franchise thing of selling.
Yeah, it's a marketing.
Yeah, it's a
thing
marketing
now.
thing now. So that's what they counted for when Disney made it a marketing thing. Which obviously this kind of all equals up to about an estimated $38 billion and counting, which is actually impressive when you consider about almost 33 million billion comes from video games alone. And kind of when you put that in
Yeah, I was
perspective,
gonna say.
when you put that in perspective, like Pokemon's obviously number one, and we've talked about a few Pokemon and everything, but $67+ billion literally comes from licensing merch for Pokemon. That's not the
Yeah,
card games, not the
exact-
video
yeah.
games. Good, sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's wild. Mario is almost exclusively a video game medium, compared to something like Pokemon. That's every medium that exists, basically.
Also,
and you have 800, 1,000 things to merchandise
Yeah.
with. Like,
Right, which also kind of
every time they roll out a new Pokemon, that's another $100 million
Yeah, which-
of merchandise.
which kind of brings to the which leads to the next part of kind of interesting thing is almost all the ones ahead of Mario are all merch and retail sales, which kind of is number 2 of Hello Kitty, which I'm sure Kate has a lot to say about.
I own not that much Hello Kitty stuff, surprisingly, given my love of Sanrio and Hello Kitty, but I have an entire shelf that is just the Sanrio My Hero Academia crossover plushies and Funko Pops because I bought them all from Hot Topic. So that makes sense.
Which kind of leads to the next part, kind of Adrian kind of touched on a little bit. This is all pretty damn impressive because despite all of these years and, for almost 40 years, basically they've done little to almost nothing in TV or film at all. Or like they've only made 21 million total in box office money. And considering how many stuff like Pokemon movies are getting pumped out like crazy, obviously we even talk about like the stuff catching it, but I think MCU is right behind it with like 22, and that has 22 billion in like film, and they're making like almost 5-6 billion just in films alone, and the way those are marketed and made money. Like the fact that Mario's done no TV, no film. I mean, even their merch stuff is not the greatest compared to like said Pokemon. It's pretty impressive. Like it's just all video games, and this was also like a good 2 or 3 decades where video games now that we're seeing sell and break records are almost turning into movies where they're still probably it just wasn't popular. I mean, it wasn't as popular in the 90s or even early 2000s or 80s. So like we don't they had about 20 years of like we made good money, but not like what we could have made, I guess, nowadays.
yeah, and looking at that list too, I think from like that top like 30 or whatever, there's only 3 things on there that started out as video game franchises, like Pokemon, Mario, and Call of Duty.
Yeah, Call of Duty's
Like,
also
that's
down the
it. Like,
line.
video
I think
games-
too.
Yeah, video games don't sell like that, but Mario
And I think
does.
also Pokemon, outside of merch, does have like card games and board game
Yeah,
stuff that we don't
exactly,
see
yeah.
and stuff. The fun fact that's kind of because we talked about the manga and stuff that's on that we before of 1.6 billion of these sales for Mario is just in their manga section of that 153 volume thing, and that's just like amazing. That kind of blew me away of everything that Mario done.
Yeah. And I can tell you right now that there is probably a large scanlation community that are itching to buy that English translation, official English translation that's coming from Viz.
Yeah, that was probably my biggest surprise out of all the Mario money was 1.6 billion came from manga that I didn't even know existed.
That's wild. Us Americans are so sheltered.
Yeah.
Manga is a huge business. Like, I don't think people understand like the actual scope of it because they try to compare it to the American comic book industry a lot, and that's just not the case.
They're just not.
I think Marvel is on there, and their comics is only like not even $1 billion or something like that. It's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, the manga industry in and of itself, like, and I think one of the reasons, I don't know how they released the Mario manga, but essentially you make money on the first sale of the individual chapter, and then you make money on the tankobon, which is the volume, and those volumes are much like, I don't care about the individual chapters that I pay for on Shonen Jump. I want those volumes. And so they make money.
Well, it's just funny because
And
I think because I could be wrong, and I remember because obviously we got the list like a few days ago. But like I said, I think Mario manga sold more than all of Marvel comics, if I remember correctly on the thing.
That's nuts.
So has One Piece, and so has Dragon Ball.
So
as well.
all of Marvel's comics
That's just
existence
nuts.
doesn't even match Mario's manga, which is one thing with 53 volumes.
That is only available in Japanese.
Yeah, that's only available in Japanese and not even the rest of the world. Which kind of leads to the next part of like kind of building on this whole as we branching out past the thing of Super Nintendo World, which is basically a theme park coming. It's coming into basically confirmed for Japan, and obviously it was supposed to open this year with the Olympics, but obviously the pandemic hit, and it's supposed to be possibly coming to Hollywood and Orlando. It's basically a theme park that's basically about a $40 billion investment, kind of almost going to be larger, about the same size as the Wizard World for Harry Potter. And Mario is going to be having a big part of that. Obviously, rides, castles, areas, and done. I attached the YouTube promo video that they released at the beginning of the year. You all should watch it. It is fantastic.
Also, one of the interesting things about the promo video, one, the song is a bop. Like, that, it's good. But two, the actual people they have in the video are majority not Japanese. Like, they were expecting large travel if you actually look at the marketing that they put into it, which is super, I mean, it's understandable and interesting because I want to go there. Like, I watched this and I was like, put me in there now, please. It's Hobbit Hole level. Like, I want to go to a Hobbit Hole. I also want to go to Mario Land. Like, those are the two places.
For as much as like I'm a big Star Wars fan, I think a Mario World would be even like just
I believe this is going to be bigger than Galaxy's Edge.
Wild. Yeah.
I was about to say, and you can take my Star Wars card right here. I don't want to go to Galaxy's Edge as much as I want to go to these other places, which I don't know if that makes me a bad Star Wars fan.
Part of it might also be because we know what Galaxy's Edge is now, and we don't know what the Mario World is. Like
I don't care. No promo video for Galaxy's Edge gave me the fun vibes that I got.
But yeah, but also that, yeah, it's just like I'm thinking about it. I'm like, man, Galaxy's Edge is just this like dark, dusty place where you eat Ronto wraps, and Mario World is like Mario.
it's just joy. Wait, because and I feel bad because like I've wanted to go on Star Tours, like I like. But not like nothing hits Hobbit Hole or Mario World for me. And that sucks because I love Star Wars a lot, but at the same time, like
for one, it's called Super Nintendo World. It's just Mario's a big part of this.
Mario World.
Okay, it might as well.
It's Mario
fair,
World, Matt. Nobody cares about
watching that promo video.
Else.
It might be Mario World. That's fair.
Nobody
like I said, there's going to be a Bowser
else.
Castle. There's going to be Koopas. There's going to be...
Which are all associated with Mario.
I think you get to play Mario Kart. There's
going to be pipes.
That's so cool.
Which kind of leads to our last part of this whole entire thing is kind of we have Super Nintendo World. But we have Mario, we have Nintendo. Nintendo's kind of around. We probably need to do our own Nintendo world, episode. Even though, to be fair, this was kind of felt like Nintendo because
it's just
yeah,
Mario.
But yeah, Nintendo. Basically, Nintendo existed before Mario, and they've made plenty of other great franchises. But Nintendo isn't Nintendo that we all know today without Mario. Mario is Nintendo. And technically popularized Nintendo in the Americas when it came over, because obviously we had this giant gaming industry crash and stuff in the early 80s, and we move over, and they almost worried about what they were going to do. And actually, I believe Super Mario Bros. Itself, before it gets to America, was supposed to be the last game made on the actual console itself, that NES. But then Mario takes off, and basically, like I said, the first Mario game is sold over 40 million copies, and essentially, boom, we have Nintendo in America and Mario in America. And we talked earlier, and we brought it up in a little bit in this episode about Zelda. And Zelda's a great franchise. It is. But Zelda has only brought in a total of $4 billion. And
only.
Mario, itself, and it's only sold 103 million units or copies. Mario's got Mario Kart, Super Mario Bros., and that includes other stuff that probably outsold Zelda itself.
The conversion rate from rupees to dollars is just not as good as coins.
So I was gonna say, one of the things that really strikes me when we think about this is, and this is coming from my position as a weeb who consumes a lot of Japanese pop culture all the time. I don't think that there is anything on par of being a foreign imported character that hits the same way as Mario does. Because Mario, for all intents and purposes, is just an American pop culture icon, even though he comes from Japan. And that is something that I think is you can't really replicate that, because as much as I love Sailor Moon, and I would say Sailor Moon is beloved in the US, or Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z, it's still not everybody knows. My mom doesn't know what the hell a Goku is, as she would say, but she knows so much about Mario just because of how it's interwoven into our fabric of just our existence on a pop culture scale.
Right, which kind of
is just mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, which, like I said,
100%.
Mario is Nintendo's official mascot, which is weird because when I think of, we talked about when we did Xbox with Gears and stuff, and even some of the Halo, we have that, but, we don't know what technically Microsoft or even Sony's official mascot is. Nintendo has explicitly stated, Mario is our mascot. Mario is us.
Mario is our Lord.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm saying, and then to Kate's point,
he is our savior
and
our
and to
messiah.
Kate's point, Mario is arguably the most iconic character and figure in all of gaming forever. And we've had stuff of whether the quote unquote the best per se, you could argue or whatever you want to say, but it is that by far the most iconic and most important probably in gaming. The Mario franchise is arguably it's obviously just from the number standpoint the best gaming franchise.
Yeah.
And they did, and funny because you talked about your mom and everything, they did marketing polls in the 90s and stuff, looking how popular, which remember I said the 89, 92 region or whatever, in which Mario is actually more renowned, recognizable, and popular than Mickey Mouse was.
Yeah.
And that's also something because I remember working at GameStop and I loved it when parents came in to buy their kids' first consoles, because all I had to do would be here's this Wii. Here are 5 Mario games. Package them together. And they would automatically gravitate towards it because they knew Mario. And so I feel what Mario does for Nintendo and specifically as its mascot, as its top seller, whatever, Nintendo exists on a scale that it doesn't have to compete with console sales. One, they have good tech, but also because they're Mario is just reliable. And Mario is marketable to pretty much every demographic you can put out there. Because if I think about if I could show my mom video game characters, and the reason I say that is both me and my brother are both extremely into games, and we always have been. So if my mom was gonna pick up things, she went into a GameStop and she knew the people that worked there and asked for stuff. If you showed her characters, 10 out of 10 she would always pick out who Mario and Luigi are. I don't think she could even tell you Link's name, she would just be like, your brother dressed up as him for Halloween one time. But like that immediate recognition, like if I were to like if I were to think of like the top things in the US that people know names of, it's probably Mario, Batman, Spider-Man, and Mickey Mouse. And I think that those are probably like the most iconic ones. And Mario doesn't even go here, but he is here.
Yeah. So two things that I'm thinking about in this conversation. One, uh recently released film The Console Wars on CBS All Access spends a lot of time looking at the late 80s, mid 90s period of like the Nintendo versus Sega. But one of the things that stands out to me the most in that saga is that all along Nintendo was committed to this image of just a universal experience that anybody can enjoy, versus Sega, who no longer is a powerhouse in the video game industry, who clung really hard to the fad of being, the totally tubular radical, whatever they were trying to do as a company. And it was successful hardcore at the time, but the lasting power, it doesn't have the staying power that Nintendo has always been able to have by appealing to everyone from your grandmother to your newborn child. And so I think that alone is a huge piece to me of why they continue to be able to just be universally beloved. And then the second thing to me is also like Mario is an Italian New Yorker.
Yes.
And
What's more relatable than that?
Which
if Nintendo made Mario as a Japanese character, the staying power in the US
That's
may
fair.
never have existed. But
That's
because
really fair.
Mario is a white dude probably from like the Bronx, like he's relatable to Americans and Americans can latch on, while Japanese audiences can also be like, well, American things are cool, and also here's a character in video game, and different cultures, so they don't need that same. Americans need to have the American centricism to it to be able to have that staying power. And
Yeah.
now it's an American icon. I mean, he's an American dude, even though he's a Japanese creation.
I mean, and that's kind of proven, because when we did our Sonic episode, we also talked about how they first marketed Sonic by figuring out what could come into America based on how Mario worked. Like, a lot of that penetration into the American market was very much based on that.
Oh yeah.
I think one of the other things that is super interesting, like when you just break down, I keep thinking of that really, really amazing Walmart commercial that they did for Xbox, that has to be one of my favorite gaming commercials ever, where it's like you see the dad as a kid getting his first Xbox, then is like a teenager or whatever getting the 360, and then getting the one, and then like buying the Series X for his daughter and like playing with her. And like that's super wholesome. But the funny thing is that's a console. That's not like, that's a brand, not an individual piece of media on that brand. Whereas like when I think of Mario, I feel like you could have somebody's grandparent, or like if like with Adrian's example, like from his grandma, like you could have somebody's grandma passing that down to their kid, then to their kid's kid, and then to like now to that kid's kid. And that is just one character from one company. And
Nintendo could remake that commercial beat for beat, but just replace it with Mario, and it would be a 30 times better commercial than it already was.
And it would be like a 5 intergenerational like gaming like connection.
But kind of let's get into, we've kind of been running on for a while, and let me get into some fun facts, and then we can get into like our final like thoughts and everything else as we've gone over. The weird thing, which I kind of knew, but just kind of didn't dawn on me to this, Nintendo established as a company in September 23rd of 1889. And Mario comes around in 1981.
What was their first thing?
I don't know. They sold random, like, they've been like an electronic weird company, toys and other stuff. I don't even know.
They used to be a like card company when they first started, like selling like cards to casinos and card games, and then like was making pachinko machines and things like that for a long time before they ever went into video games.
It's
That's also
weird.
one of the really cool things I love about Japan that manga taught me, is because one of the things in manga and shoujo especially are really old hotels that have been running for like 800 years and like have just gotten like slow renovations over time and are maintained by the same family. Thank you, shoujo manga romances. But like that is actually something really cool that I can't even think of in the US. Like when you think of like old US companies, one, we're not that old of a country because, you know, we killed a whole bunch of people for it. Happy Thanksgiving. But also, that's just something that's really interesting. But I didn't know Nintendo fell into that like very old company.
Nintendo's like 3 times older than Mario.
Yeah, it's wild.
More than that, I think. Like I can't do.
I mean, they
can't
don't
do
release
math,
the
but
NES
yeah.
until like, you know, a little less than 100 years, like 95 years later. Like, that's insane.
Yeah. And let that be a lesson that your biggest accomplishment has yet to come.
You have 95 years to figure it out.
Just keep going. Yeah. Keep moving forward.
Speaking of professions, Mario's original profession was a carpenter because they thought he would be more relatable to U.S. audiences as a hardworking person. And obviously,
are they sure they weren't trying to like replicate Jesus, but Mario?
That's what I was thinking. They were just trying to make him. They're really trying to make Mario
from
Jesus.
What I know now. Obviously, this changed over time.
Is that why he had 3 lives?
Obviously,
coming back.
Obviously, this changed over time. Some people still hate this change and still claim he's a carpenter, but he's not. Obviously,
are they Christian?
No idea. But obviously, this was due to
probably all grandpas. Though.
You know, due to working in the underground settings and whatnot else, that he became a plumber in all the pipes. The fun joke that's been said is Mario is Italian because he had a mustache. That's how they based his nationality. But also, it kind of came with like...
I thought that he was Mexican for the longest time. For a lot of the same reasons that I thought Saiyans were Mexican, and I still believe they are.
Okay.
But no. Like,
to be fair, nobody ever asked Mario how he identifies.
It's because John Leguizamo also plays him.
He plays Luigi, not Mario.
Oh no. I know, which makes his brother has to be Latino because we knew he was Latino in our house. He may have been playing Italian though, because you know that whole Italians play Latino. Play Italian.
But obviously the joke is between he has mustache be Italian. But kind of as you said, they were kind of getting ready to make like Super Mario Brothers, like 1 or 2 or whatever to bring over here, and they're like, let's just throw them in New York and make them as plumbers since they're over there with the pipes and working underground. And why is that? Like his mustache? Just give him he's Italian now.
So you're saying they didn't think about it when they made everything, and then they're like, "Oh, we got to take it to America. Let's give him a backstory."
Pretty much, which is funny because he only actually has a mustache because at the time, drawing a mouth that was you could actually see it was like improbable. So they give him a mustache instead.
That makes me think of like when people get gun hands and things, because hands are just really hard to animate. So if you put cannons on them, you don't got to worry about it, Mega Man.
Which also leads to the next part of Mario only wears a hat because they couldn't portray hair at the time either. So they gave him a hat and a mustache because, as in 1980s, if you've seen the original comic thing, it's literally that's what they could make. That made it make sense. Mario's been voiced by the same person since 1990, Charles Martinet. And he still voices him today. He also voices Luigi and Wario, and Waluigi, I believe as well.
I just love the Waluigi eraser that Matt is incorporating into this episode.
Also, I included the video of him explaining of how he got it. So apparently, he was doing a bunch of Mario voices as an auctioneer, and apparently stumbled into like they wanted him to do a plumber voice or something like that, and he essentially he thought about doing the Italian, like, stereotypical accent instead. He decided to go with the voice that we always know of instead, and they loved it so much, and he's been voicing... I think he didn't show up until, like, maybe Mario 64 is where we officially hear him in a video game, but he's been doing the voicing and everything else, whether it be trade shows and whatnot, since about 1990.
I had to see it if he did him too, but apparently he does the baby voices too, which is...
Yeah, he
adorable.
basically, the man is
range.
Mario. Like, he is Mario. But moving on to the next fun fact here thing. Mario is named after Mario Segal, who crashed the meeting demanding back rent and from Nintendo because apparently they were falling behind. And after mass arguments and everything else, they finally obviously they paid him the rent.
It also sounds like another angry Italian from
Yes,
New York.
basically after doing this, they eventually decided to name the character Mario.
That's funny.
Which will get even better when we
it's
get into how Luigi gets his name as well.
You got to do how Kirby got his name one day.
Yeah, when we have a Kirby.
Oh, we have to do a Kirby episode.
That's like Kirby's name is great.
Which obviously leads to like Mario and Luigi are known as the Mario Brothers, which therefore Mario's name is Mario. And then obviously you guys can argue all you want, whether that's fact, fiction, or just whatever. Obviously we had the 1993 movie that kind of people grab some like lore from, but obviously that movie's terrible, so we just do what we can.
The only
Mario,
lore I
Jumpman
grab
Mario.
from there is that Mario is at least a version of Latino. I don't know what kind, but which an Italian Latino is a thing in Hollywood.
Yes.
So I guess there we go.
There you go.
Then Mario's also had some weird cameos over the years. This includes being in Zelda multiple times, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Metal Gear Solid, Punch-Out, Tetris, SSX Tour, NBA Street Volume 3, and some more.
There are 2 mods that PC gamers love, and that is make this thing an anime girl and make it Mario. And it creates for some of the most disturbing things. And you should just look up turn this thing into Mario mods for PC stuff.
Okay, so I guess let's get out of here. Kate, your final... Or I guess I'll go... I'll let Kate go. Actually, I'll just go. So I guess I'll start with my final thoughts of her. Obviously, Mario, a big part of my childhood. He's been a long-standing factor about stuff. I am sad that I've missed Mario in the last 10 years. Obviously, as we've gotten more and more just trying to different consoles, different games, time, adulting and whatnot else. So I do plan to one day actually be able to come back and enjoy some of the Mario games. It's just wild of how many games I've played, but also just how many games I haven't. And just kind of learning all about Mario and all the stuff that Mario represents and done, and even just talk, listen to everybody talk about, even the parents, because even my mom and parents have been before of then you want a Nintendo or the Mario, and I'm like, Mario it's not on an Xbox. That's not how that works. But it just how popular the character and then the brand itself and just everything have grown over the years. And I'm assuming it'll only even get even bigger as not only nostalgia kicks off, but just, gaming itself has grown. And Mario will always be, whether the start of it or just even closer as we keep continue at the forefront of all this.
Yeah, so for me, Mario's dope. I mean, we wouldn't have all of the really great things we have now to keep the things going. We've covered Super Smash Brothers, we've covered Pokemon, we've covered Legend of Zelda, but I don't think any of that stuff continues to happen without the success of Mario. So I think just in and of itself, I think that's a super super big but why they're there. While I may enjoy playing Legend of Zelda games more than playing Mario games, I can't deny that we wouldn't be able to get all the things we have now without Mario being there first. Yeah, really kind of that. I mean, we covered a whole lot of stuff. I think I've said a whole bunch of stuff, but I think that's the biggest thing for me. Nintendo wouldn't be where it's at without Mario.
Kate, what do you have for us?
Mario is important because it connects people, and I pretty much already said my final thought earlier. Just that, I think, because I honestly, I am so detached from Mario because I haven't played close to any games. But even I understand the impact of it. I also understand that he's the one thing that I can lean on when I'm trying to explain things to my mom about gaming. But beyond that, platformers is probably my favorite style of game, or favorite game type. I'm playing a game right now that I am having to routinely tell myself to go back to the main quest because there are just so many different platforming elements. And while the first 3D platformer 3D magnetic platformer is Tomb Raider, the first 3D platformer is a Mario game. And I think any sort of the advancements in both side-scrolling platforming, cinematic platforming, and 3D platforming comes from Mario. So the game type that is my favorite, I have to give credit to Mario in every aspect of it. So, yeah. That's my final thought.
Yeah, and I feel bad because I didn't get to go into pretty much all of like what Mario establishes as far as platforming and just game
So
and 3D.
we need to have Mario 2, the mechanics.
Yeah, like because
Super
I believe
Mario
like
Brothers
Mario
2.
Kart ends up like helping like 3D worlds even get Mario
Yes.
stuff. It's like there's so much innovation that Nintendo
Mario
does.
Kart is one of the big reasons graphically you're able to do progression of landscape,
Right.
I think, if I'm correct.
Something to that degree. But like I said, I didn't get to talk about all the stuff in actual innovation, not 20 innovation, Twitter. But like with what Nintendo does for everything else. But no, I didn't have enough time for all that stuff. But so Jason, kind of give us your final thoughts, and thank you again for being here and get us out so we can get out of here.
So thanks for coming on, Jason. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
You can find me at But Why Though, editing everyone's things in the audio and the writing. I'm on Twitter at flatter_you. I talk about these kind of things sometimes, but also other things. So it's a good time.
And next week you'll hear all about his like 6,000 words just on Luigi.
Yes.
As always, you can find us at But Why Though PC on everything. At I can't spell Why Though. Okay. At BUTWHYTHOPC on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. And if you want to support the show, head on over to patreon.com/ButWhyThoughPC. Adrian.
Yeah, but you can find me on Twitter at Superruz93, SUPERRUIZ 93.
Matt.
I don't got anything.